I'm really looking forward to this fight. At 185 pounds, we have Kyle, yes, my brother is Chris Daukaus, taking on Dustin Stoltzfus, who's making his UFC debut. If I milk the accent, I took 1 semester at German in university. I will toot my own horn and I will take it to the bank. Ich heiße Craig Allen. Ich liebe in Canada. And that's about it. And I will milk those accents. A+, taking it home. But Matt, overall,
modest too.
This fight is great. I mean, Kyle Daukaus, you saw it from his UFC debut. I know his record now is at 9-1, and people may be down on Brendan Allen from his performance against Sean Strickland. But if you go back and watch that fight, Allen Daukaus, holy smokes, it'll blow the doors off of a lot of the middleweight fights that you're gonna see, because Kyle Daukaus rallied. He put the cat on. He put it upside down. It was 9th inning for the boys. We were getting excited. Rally caps for the boys. And Kyle Daukaus put on a great performance. And I mean, I look at the scores. Michael Bell scored that third round at 10-9 Daukaus. Sal D'Amato scored at 10-9 Daukaus. Dave Hagen had his head under the table and scored at 10-9 Allen. Matt Allen, I know that there was a possibility that the third round, maybe you scored it at 10-8 for Kyle Daukaus. A lot of people didn't. Maybe you could make the argument, but Kyle Daukaus, what we do know, out of those 9 wins, the guy is a very good jiu-jitsu artist. You see the black belt around his waist on the Instagrams, along with brother Chris Daukaus, who's taken the heavyweight division by storm. But overall, Kyle Daukaus, what a grappler.
He is, and he's phenomenal on the ground. And this is a good way to judge someone by their grappling. It's not like all of his wins are just rear naked choke and guillotines. Kyle Daukaus wins by Darce chokes, Barbo chokes, anacondas, rear naked choke. Like, he can really beat you in any position on the ground. And that's the fun thing about this fight. We've been spending most of our lives living in this grappler's paradise, and I do think this fight is going to be absolute fireworks. And I'm almost more excited for when it hits the mat, for when it's on the feet, because yes, Dustin Stoltzfus, and I'm going to struggle with that name, so I'm just going to call him Dustin. Dustin does have really good kicks, really good punches, and he puts every ounce of his being behind them, and you really appreciate that because, you know, in his mindset, he's not afraid of being taken down. That's where his bread and butter is. With Kyle Daukaus, he is a little bit more volume-centric, if you will. He fights a little bit more similar to his brother, where he's not going to go out there and just try to knock you out with that one big shot. He will kind of play the long-term game. And Kyle Daukaus, a lot of his wins, too, come later on into the fight because he's not afraid to grind on his opponent. And then as they start to fade as the fight moves on, that's when he starts to take over. So, again, I couldn't be more excited for this fight.
And, I mean, for Dustin Stoltzfus making his UFC debut, a guy coming in off of Dana White Contender Series this past summer, he got a first-round win over Joseph Pfeiffer in a bit of a non-starter of a fight. It was kind of a disappointment. Pfeiffer breaking his arm. It was gross. It kind of sucked. But, hey, you get your opportunity in the UFC. I mean, he's 13-1, and you look at the wins. He beats Nihad Nasifovic at GMC 3. Guy's record was 9-4. Nothing to shake his stick at. But if you go back and watch that fight, Stoltzfus really set things up on the feet. He was throwing those nice hooks. He was whipping them with those kicks. And the thing with Dustin Stoltzfus, he'll throw the kicks everywhere. It's not like he's just landing a calf kick every time. He'll aim for your knee. He'll aim for your thigh. Because like you said, he's not afraid to get taken down. You know how good of a submission game he has. And he got a third-round twister in that one. Pretty darn cool. Wow. Bryce Mitchell, Korean Zombie. Hey, keep it on lock. I know he's, 40 pounds heavier than both of those guys. But still, keep it on lock. But the fight that I really like for Dustin Stoltzfus was the fight against Jonas Bilstein. And in that fight, GMC 20, you might recognize Jonas from fighting Alexander Shlemenko and getting finished, and then Frolov and getting finished, and then Stoltzfus and getting finished. But hey, Jonas Bilstein is a really good type of litmus test for me to see if you beat him, you can probably kick it in one of the bigger promotions. I mean, yeah, it took Stoltzfus 2 more fights to make it here, but he gets a big win there in a fight against a guy that can definitely kickbox. He's throwing those crazy kicks. He's mixing in some combinations. He switched stances very well. He rocked him in that first round. He gets taken down. He's grabbing the guillotine, and then the round ends, and he goes in there and throws a wild right hand that absolutely springboards his opponent in that one. Stoltzfus, you know he's great on the feet. You know his jiu-jitsu's certainly there. And you look at his total wins, and I mean, this is a guy, you can't take it from him. He's the We Love MMA middleweight champ. We love MMA.
Yeah.
And he's their middleweight champ. And for Kyle Daukaus, coming out of CFFC with a lot of really big wins, former champ over there on the American regional scene. We've seen fighters like Miranda Granger. You've seen somebody who's on this card in Katlyn Chookagian, as well as, don't call me his brother, but his brother, Chris Daukaus. You've seen a lot of good fighters coming out of CFFC as well. So Stoltzfus coming in here Really impressive record again. Like I said, 13-1. You look at the number of wins, and again, for both of these guys, plenty of submissions. So out of 13, 2 by knockout, 5 by submission, 5 by decision, 1 disqualification win. For Daukaus, 8 submission wins to 1 decision. Very, very impressive out of both of these guys. I really, really expect fireworks in this one. And if it's not fireworks on the feet, you're going to get a grappler's paradise. Now, hopefully it's not as one-sided as like Bryce Mitchell, Charles Rosa, which we thought would have been a much more evenly matched fight. But overall, it seems like a great deal of matchmaking here.
And it is, because both guys match up with each other so well at any distance, or really at any setting in which this fight takes place at. Now, on the feet, Dustin does hit harder than Kyle Daukaus, but I do really like the volume and the speed of Kyle Daukaus. And I would say that neither one of these guys are really what you think of when you think of a traditional grappler in MMA with their striking styles. Kyle, a very good boxer in his own right, does go to the body and to the head quite well. He will grapple much more than his brother, though. Whereas Dustin Stoltzfus, he does have the kicks where... The one thing that worries me is he switches stances, but he doesn't do something all the time. Like, he'll switch stances, and from the orthodox position, he seems to be a little bit more hittable than he is from the southpaw position. So I don't know if that's just a sense that he has to become a little bit more comfortable with both sides. That'll come with experience, but it's a good sign that he can do a lot of that stuff already. It's just, I would like to see maybe a little bit less of it until he does improve somewhat. But Stoltzfus was the guy, too, where on the Contender Series, it was one of those things where you knew that if he just won, that Dana White was going to give him a contract. It was one of those...
It's been that way the whole season in 2020.
Oh, really? And it's been that way for a lot of it. But you could tell that the UFC was like, okay, we don't really care how he wins. I know that's how they market the show, but he's probably going to get a contract. Of course, winning via, like, Mark Coleman Shogun arm break is pretty gross, but it was good enough to get him in the UFC. I like a lot of things about Dustin Stoltzfus. I just don't know if he beats Kyle Daukaus. And for this reason alone, I know Kyle Daukaus can take him down. I don't know if he can take Kyle Daukaus down. And from the top position, yes, Stoltzfus is a really good grappler. I don't know if he's going to be able to squirm his way out from underneath a guy like Kyle Daukaus, who isn't just jumping on submissions and you can buck yourself out from underneath him. He's very much more control and then get the submission, and then control and get the submission. So I do think sort of the steady game of Kyle Daukaus will slowly take over as the fight progresses.
I think it's going to be a really, really good fight. So let's have a look at the odds just quickly. Stoltzfus opened as a plus 125 underdog. He's now at a plus 205. Kyle Daukaus, one of the biggest movers and shakers in terms of this line, open a minus 150. He's now at a minus 252. If we have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt, and it's still early, at a 438 total votes, 74% going Daukaus, with 64% of the voters going with him to win by decision. Bit of a surprise to me because, again, both of these guys are proven finishers. A lot of people seeing the method of victory for Kyle Daukaus to be by decision. Same thing for Stoltzfus. Out of the 26% that went with him, 53% predicting a win by decision. And that's the interesting thing. I think Kyle Daukaus has a method of victory where not lamprey, not Jake Shields-esque, but once he gets that fight down to the ground, you're going to have a hard time getting out from under them tangs, as Shannon Sharp would put it. So overall, I'm really looking forward to this fight. We've talked quite a bit about both of these fighters. I mean, with Kyle Daukaus, steady pressure on the feet, really good volume, really good pressure, and great takedowns as well. For Stoltzfus, his takedowns come in different ways. And I mean, they're not as fluid as a guy like Kyle Daukaus.
No, Stoltzfus has a much more traditional jiu-jitsu sense of a takedown where he's more trying to drag his opponent to the ground, and I don't think that's going to work against a guy like Kyle Daukaus because he's the one moving forward, so you're not really going to have a lot of opportunities to get his back up against the cage, and for that reason alone, again, I think it's hard to pick against Kyle Daukaus. Dustin is the harder puncher, and he's the more powerful striker, so of course there's always a chance for him to land a big bomb, and he is... You can tell naturally he is a grappler, but he's definitely made huge improvements throughout his striking game, and you can see that throughout his career, but I just don't know if it'll be enough to beat Kyle Daukaus.
A guy out of Pennsylvania in Kyle Daukaus, and a guy out of Pennsylvania on the right-hand side in Dustin Stoltzfus, who's been training in Germany at Planet Eater MMA. You might recognize Peter Sabata coming out of that gym as well. Matt, this is a really tough one for me, and it's going to take a lot more tape study as the week goes on. I mean, we've watched quite a few fights already, but it's going to take just a little bit more. I'm looking forward to question mark kicks on Saturday, but for the time being, I'm going with Dustin Stoltzfus, the big underdog at this point. I mean, again, the line opened, and I wasn't overly surprised. You got Daukaus at minus 150 after a really competitive fight. It might not show in the scorecards against Brendan Allen. Stoltzfus coming in at plus 125. I like Stoltzfus at a plus 205. And again, I really like his game. He can mix things up on the feet. He can switch stances. He can really mix in a lot of different strikes. And again, you really have to worry about his jiu-jitsu once it touches the mat. I know on MMA Form Guide, they list him as a brown belt. You have Kyle Daukaus as a black belt on the left-hand side, so we'll see what happens in this one. But overall, I'm really looking forward to this fight. Yeah. You've got Kyle Daukaus. Hey, I'm Chris's brother. I've got Dustin Stoltzfus in his UFC debut. Overall, it's a great fight. We've got a really good card, headlined by two great fights. Flyweight championships, you got Deiveson Figueiredo defending his belt against Alex Perez, and then you also have Valentina Shevchenko defending hers against Jennifer Maia. So you're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt, as we always say. Let's get into it.